Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and it's been, can you believe it, almost a whole week. This is it. We stop. We don't do Friday. I need Fridays off. 2 hours is a lot to do, plus other broadcasts later in the day, other appearances, especially right now, commercial free. But Reality Rants, Red Voice Media, 1 week in. And I was thinking to myself, you got a lot of new people coming in because of this. Not familiar with who I am, don't know about my work, okay? And maybe won't understand out of the gates why I always say it's not about left or right when the left at this point has gone overboard and completely authoritarian and completely insane on so many levels, where conservatism and Republicans seem like the saner choice, right? Well, this ain't my first rodeo. I've been doing this a very, very long time. And so what I thought I would do today is we're going to play a bunch of different interviews that I've conducted over the years, places where I've spoken, but I've recorded other speakers who, again, I've interviewed and talked with behind the scenes. They're going to include Ted Gunderson. If people don't know who Ted Gunderson is, that's the person within the FBI. It was head of the LA division. I think there was some weird things going on there. I'm not saying that Ted wasn't on the level, but it's hard to trust somebody all the way who was involved in COINTELPRO. He was a big part of uncovering things within the Franklin scandal that would be further legitimized later on. G. Edward Griffin. We're going to play some G. Ed on this. We're going to play a guy named Anthony Saltalamacchia in regards to 9/11. And then if we have time, we're also going to play my buddy Charlie Skelton, who was kind of a comedy writer turned journalist who was working, still does get his stuff published every once in a while in The Guardian, and really an honest and good person. Okay, so there are some of those in journalism. We're going to do all that, but that's after we talk about, is there a red wave and is it coming to save us? Now, let's start here. We talked about the Pelosi thing big time and narrative running, and I have to sit there and watch Zombie J, right? The poopy pants puppet. They had him on the good amphetamines and the big spray makeup, probably Botoxed up. It's pretty disastrous at this point, but at least he didn't look like he was literally going to die on stage, okay? And I have to see him talk about where's Nancy? He's furthering the Jack Torrance narrative at the Overlook Hotel. Where's Nancy? When the further you look into this thing, that seems to be one of the most, fictitious aspects of it. I'll put dollars to donuts that when we get to some kind of a trial or any semblance of what actually happened, okay, maybe the body cam footage, I don't know. Weirder things have happened. Maybe somewhere down the line, you're going to find out that he said, where's Nancy, amongst other things, because he was just a friend. His name was David, and he's a friend, be advised. But we don't know who he is. Okay? But there he is, the poopy pants puppet up there, running with that narrative again and again and again and again. And these narratives are super out of control. So Katie Hobbs, a lot of people won't even know the name because all they know about is Carrie Lake because she's out there kicking arnists and taking names. And I got all the respect in the world for Carrie Lake, somebody who was in mainstream journalism for decades, all right, in local journalism, saw how much it had changed into being a corporate mouthpiece for authoritative narratives in a post-truth world, and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm Dunsky. It's over in Hutch over here. And then is running one of the most successful campaigns that people are seeing nationally. And that's because this person has got, for lack of a better term, the cojones, Uh-oh, he's culturally appropriating. Bermas is culturally appropriating. And he's misgendering Kari Lake. Seriously, though, Lake just battle plan. Bring it on. Knows how to talk to these little minions and little puppets that go along with these narratives and work for these publications. National, most of them inflated with their numbers via narrative control, and just tears them apart time and time again. Makes a guy like me proud. I'm like, all right, good. You know, this person seems genuine. Are they going to be good on every issue? Probably not. That's without a doubt. But coming back to this story, Katie Hobbs had basically blamed Kari Lake for some kind of like an office break-in, right? It's cartoon world that you would even do that, to think Lake is interested in breaking into your campaign headquarters, all right? So now we're finding out it was this guy who is an illegal immigrant. Am I even allowed to say that? I mean, what do they have it phrased as here? I don't want to. It's a Portuguese migrant, an illegal Portuguese migrant. And geez, I wouldn't want to misgender this guy either, right? It's just, again, we're living in a post-truth world of cartoonism, where this guy, who knows why he broke in and what he was doing there, but had nothing to do with Kari Lake at all. But it's narrative management. It's narrative control. And I was going to play a clip. I've got all these other clips up. One was acting up on me. And it was the 2008 presidential debate, the first one ever held by YouTube. It was in conjunction with CNN and their boy Anderson Pooper. Huh? He's a big poopski and hutch up there, isn't he? Like the poops and his Vanderbilt pedigree. He ate this fake news thing. They've regurgitated shite out of their mouth for decades. So he's the moderator, and I mean everybody's there. Hillary Clinton, the Barack star, right? Joey B's up there. There's a couple people I admire. Gravel, God rest his soul. Rest in peace, Mr. Gravel. Mike Gravel is up there. And then Dennis Kucinich. But aside from that, you just got other slime up there like Ben Richardson, like John Edwards, all towing the line. And back then, Biden, this is pre him being, again, the vice president. He'd run for the president, I think, in 2004 as well. You see he's a company man, and he's a jokester, and he's a gangster. And I want to remind people, again, I've been doing this a long time, that he actually wrote this, okay? Counterpoint, Joe Biden. There it is. How I learned to love the New World Order. Why not breathe life into the UN Charter? So when we talk about Davos, when we talk about the carbon credit control system, when we talk about NATO and a global military and this idea of pseudo-government organizations and their narratives, Joe Biden was right there with Pappy Bush. That's 92, right? In my film, Invisible Empire, New World Order Defined, I highlight the tour of Bush. And it's not just that one speech. Everybody goes to that speech, right? And it's a big speech. A New World Order, right? It's a big speech. But he went on tour with that. It wasn't a one-time thing, all right? And I highlight that in there, but I also highlight that Joe Biden wrote this piece, right? Let's just read this little highlighted part right behind me. Why doesn't the Journal stop the name calling, get its school sorted out, and court an honest debate over America's proper role in the New World Order? Oh, our proper role. Well, our role now is to be mocked and humiliated globally, all right, to bend the knee to globalism, to have the most outward puppet administration ever on behalf of that guy that wrote that. That's your reward, Joe. Joe Biden. Same guy that has now twice told you his son died in Iraq. It's sad. I mean, that's really sad. That's it doesn't make me happy. You know, we've had puppets in the past. George H.W. Bush. Pappy Bush is son, he didn't run nothing. He didn't run jack squat. He's basically Biden with a pulse and who could speak. Even if he spoke like this, really quick. Not knowing what he was talking about. You know, at least he'd clap along, right? Shake some hands, look you in the eye. He could do that. But behind him, oh boy, let me tell you, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, Darth Cheney, it's the real deal. That's his father's stay-behind network there. And at this point, we're living in the post-truth world. We're living in the new world order. And let's say we get this red wave, right? Bring it back to the old red wave. We're getting a red wave. Guys like Bill Gates have bought off that red wave like you wouldn't believe. This is Pearson Sharp. I like Pearson. Think we should get Pearson on the show, honestly. OAN, he's done some amazing work. Here's a full list of the congressional Republicans funded by Bill Gates for the 2022 midterms. Now, before I read every single one of these names, I want to point out that, yep, little Marco's there. Little Marco on the Gates side. Little Marco Rubio. Little Marco taking money from Monsanto and Bayer. Little Marco, not your friendzo. Little Marco Rubio. So, you know, there are those that are like, ooh, Marco Rubio. You know, I don't like any of these guys. And here's a whole list of names down the line. All right? A whole list of names down the line taking that sweet, sweet Gates nectar. That's scratchola. They taking it. So let's just bang that right up there for everybody. We got Vernon Buchanan. Oh, Danny Crenshaw. There he is. Young global leader. Although, hey, Crenshaw says they just put him on a website. But I'll tell you what. The way Crenshaw votes is as authoritarian, neocon, neoliberal, whatever as it gets. Dan Crenshaw ain't your friend, Texas. By the way, we got 120 people watching in these first 12 minutes. By the way, after the first hour, we go premium, or you go audio over on Podbean. And I want to thank everybody that is supporting this show. The links are down below that you can get this uncensored. You click those links, and that way you can sign up, and it helps the broadcast so much in growing. You know, we're trying to grow this thing, you know, so we can take on people like little Marco Rubio and Danny Crenshaw. Let's see. Eliza Stefanik, Chuck Fleischman, Mike Simpson, Garrett Graves, Kathy Roger, Kay Granger, Susan Delborn, Kelly Armstrong, John Curtis, Brian Fitzpatrick, Dan Newhouse, Jamie Butler, Mike Crapo, John Crinnan, Shelley Capito, Mike Braun, Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, John Kennedy, John Baruso, John Thune, Bill Haggerty, Jerry Morin, there's Marco again, John Hoven, and Mitt the Man Romney. Oh, yeah, Mitt. Give it up. We love Mitt Romney. 166 plus watching on Rumble. See that? We're surpassing, you know, on a platform that is not the biggest in the world, that hopefully won't become a part of the military-industrial complex, although we're not big Thiel fans here. We're not big Peter fans. Again, billionaires generally not your buddy, right? Right, Muskernuts? Old Musk says he's going to fire half the staff at Twitter. Good. He could probably fire 3/4. Get rid of remote work. Good. Probably not the best idea in that kind of social media environment. You want to hold people accountable in person, right? In person. Hi. Have conversations in person, that human touch. And then this whole $8 a month for a blue check mark. Well, I'm glad that they'd never give me a blue check mark. Can you $8 a month to have a blue check mark? Wow, what a status symbol. So you got to pay $100 a year for that air of authoritative sourcing? I mean, come on. And after he wears the, what is it, Satan's champion outfit? Yeah, he's the best. He's number one. So, that gets us into this. Now, I often cite signature reduction. A lot of the newer audience may not know what I'm talking about. Okay? Signature reduction is an art form created by the military-industrial complex to have complete plausible deniability over the last decade, where they have the bots, but they got the real people. They got the Mission Impossible stuff, Here, I often show the hand, which is incredible. The glove hand and the biometrics, but they do full castings on bodies. I mean, they do the Hollywood magic stuff. But what's really impressive, if they have backdoors into the digital infrastructure that can create an identity. Like the guy they're following around he's got all of his paperwork. He's in a car that's registered to somebody else with legitimate plates under another false identity. I mean, it's like boom, boom, boom. So many layers. So many layers. No one talks about signature reduction. And yesterday we talked a lot about the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, working with big tech, which is, again, it's their plausible deniability. It's the government's not doing it directly, but these are really Trojan horse civilian systems which they control from within. And whenever you see a whistleblower from them, they're contending for what? More censorship, more narrative control. We want 66 years before we can tell you what's on Seth Rich's laptop. Great. Well, everybody in general, right, via mass media, thinks that Edward Snowden was the guy that told us all, wow, no, the United States government's really spying on us. Because we were supposed to believe people like Michael Hayden and James Clapper when they were lying in congressional and Senate hearings about doing so, right? But the truth of the matter is, all of this was happening pre-9/11. All of it. At the cutting edge of technology then. Okay? Every single bit of it. And to demonstrate that, like I said, we're going to go down a little journey here into the things that I've done over the years. It's a film I put out in 2010. Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. Now, the segment we're going to watch here, it's in the last, looks like it's got about 20 minutes or so. Somewhere in that range, a little less than 20 minutes. This is almost the wrap-up, but this is showing you those Norris Insight systems and that analysis that I've been talking about a very long time. So we're going to go into that section. I may jump in and out. Then I'm going to show you another clip of how much the media has promoted these billionaires as benevolent, right? But people thought Gates was great. Well, we got a computer on the Xbox, right? He was being portrayed as a superstar in the media. They still try to portray him as like some kind of authority over the masses, but that's because he pays for a lot of that. He pays for a lot of that. When we talk about non-government organizations and charities, right, they're making scratch that ain't taxed. That's when you really get to join the club. When they're like, the Carnegie Endowment? How about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? Sounds great, doesn't it? And we'll open a dozen more. That's when you've really made it. Like top money laundering globalist level. So, in order to have a society where, again, you control the masses without them knowing it, you want as much data on them as possible. And before signature reduction, there was this program we're going to show you right here. This is Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and you can watch this free and share it. It's a great way to support the broadcast.
It's based on lies and even a phony environmental movement. So it should come as no surprise that they have been tracking, tracing, and databasing our lives for years. Many people are aware that the Bush administration engaged in warrantless wiretaps on American citizens. What they don't understand is that it's come out in court that all the major telecommunications companies have been secretly storing every piece of data received from our phones and our computers and handing them over to the National Security Agency.
You heard about the government secretly listening in on phone conversations without a warrant, but there is evidence that your email is also being tapped. The government has been intercepting most emails as part of its terrorist surveillance program. That program has been criticized as illegal because it's missing an important ingredient: search warrants. Several years ago, Klein says he came to suspect that AT&T had installed secret computer gear designed to spy on internet traffic at the request of the National Security Agency.
This is just a small part of the picture, as AT&T was not the only company involved and emails were not the only issue. The NSA was installing Norris Insight systems, which are capable of monitoring billions of bits of internet traffic per second. It was also able to monitor any calls trafficked through its system, all websites visited, all instant messaging, and separate types of transaction records.
The secret room at AT&T contains gear which enables the government to look at every individual message on the internet and analyze exactly what people are doing. Here's another document. It mentions a company called Narus. Narus makes computer software that can swallow and analyze 10 gigabytes of information every second. That means it could go through all the information in all the books in the Library of Congress in a little over 15 minutes.
The documents Klein and others were able to produce were then censored by the NSA.
Bankston isn't allowed to talk about the documents in detail. The government has since had them sealed. But he says what is in there boggles the mind.
We are talking about a substantial portion of all the communications traffic in the United States.
The policies have been shielded by the Obama administration and continue to this day. Attorney General Holder has publicly stated lawsuits be thrown out of court. And after several attempts, Klein and other cases were thrown out as well.
I want to pause it right there. I want to keep continuing because it's going to show you how things have expanded. It's talking about these things well over a decade ago, and now we're moving away from the track trace database society, which they've already instituted on a mass level in first world countries, in second world countries, and yes, even in third world countries, kind of in a reverse style, right? So what do I mean by a reverse style? In third world countries, like where brown people were terrorists during the War of Terror, they didn't necessarily put CCTV cameras everywhere. They biometrically took everybody's eye print. And then they militarized the skies with drone warfare that they could collect metadata on and decide to bomb weddings. Right? Michael Hayden, we've played the clip. We kill people based on metadata. Right? So you don't necessarily need the type of infrastructure that you have in this country or in parts of Europe, right? Because you have the authority by law to just, rain death showers on people via the biometrics. And the next step of what they want to bring in here, again, a little bit more peacefully, but they're ready to put the robot dogs on the streets and the little drones to tell you to put a covering on or do this or do that or social distance like they did in Singapore. Right? They had the little robot dog going through there, where they want you to take the internet of bodies, where they want under the skin surveillance on top of it all. So this will bridge that gap and show you how they're doing it outside of just the spying. We're going to continue on. Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined.
Once again citing the national security of what used to be a constitutional republic, not a massive corrupt slave state.
Living in the New World Order, when it's close to completion, for the average citizen, for people like you and me, is going to be essentially slavery. We're never going to be able to get ahead. We're never going to be able to amass enough wealth, essentially to retire or to do what we want to do in life. We're going to constantly be working for the man. They're creating essentially a two-class system. So it's going to be an inner ruling elite and then everyone else. And I got news for you. You're everyone else.
The New World Order that is currently being built revolves around creating a global technopoly ruled by the elite, in which they dominate and control a severely reduced populace, which they treat as their pets. In the New World Order, the people are the enemy. Internal documents released in March of 2009 reveal that the Department of Homeland Security is targeting citizens who discussed the New World Order, people with a Christian identity, or sovereign citizens who argue that the government has gotten away from the intent of the Constitution and are strong states' rights advocates.
It's the MIAC report. I've been talking about that more and more. These are from the fusion centers, right? How do we get to signature reduction? Well, you have the Norris Insight systems. Then you get the Patriot Act. Then you get Homeland Security. Then you have fusion centers. Then you get signature reduction, okay?
People who are anti-immigration, stating, extremists will argue that immigrants are taking the jobs of U.S. citizens during times of high unemployment and without paying taxes. People who oppose the Federal Reserve banking system. People who display constitutional party or libertarian material. People who support Ron Paul. And those who have bumper stickers containing anti-government rhetoric. This document is one of literally thousands that make everyone a possible terrorist. This establishes a pattern of demonizing ordinary citizens while giving draconian powers to the state.
Sound familiar? Now you're hearing about this on mainstream media. I was talking about it a decade ago. Now they're mobilizing DHS and the DOJ against citizens that speak out about what's going on in the school systems. You know, they're not part of the militia. And we focused a little bit on Ron Paul yesterday. And Ron Paul, again, getting up there, saying what needs to be said, having an audience uproariously be like, yes, Mr. Paul, yes. And still the media demonize that guy. And, you know, back to the red wave. Let's bring it all the way back to the red wave. What happened? I mean, have we changed the infrastructure of the Johnny nonsense? Of the ballot harvesting? Of the mail-ins? Of the machines that should have never been there in the first place? Of fractional voting? Have we changed any of that? Any of it new? That's a newski. That's a no saucerino. No, we haven't. So you got that hill to climb. You got the hill that all those candidates we just went over, they're taking the scratchola. And you got this permanent security state that's been operating in this country, what people will call the deep state, for decades. Decades. Post-World War II, it took off. Like, just boom, to the moon. Wink, wink. That's what happened. And now it's got into massive levels where they're out in the open. Orwellian style, with their Bernaysian tactics. So let's play a little bit more of the film, and then we're going to get to G. Edward Griffin talking about the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. Now, in this film, I have G. Edward Griffin, and he talks about the CFR. This is a separate presentation that he gives, but talk about old school and on the money. G. Edward Griffin is that guy that bridges the gap of all the isms, in my opinion. He's the guy that lets you know that socialism, communism, right? They're not only forms of authoritarianism, right, that you could argue that dictatorships are outwardly. They're all about collectivism, all right? And basically, the many need to come together for the good of everybody. And maybe they got to make some sacrifices. Now, that is in direct contradiction to the rugged individualist that says, yeah, if I have to work with you, I can, but I'm going to be given that choice. And I can be the minority, and I'm not going to be prosecuted or persecuted for it. In fact, it's going to be celebrated that a guy like me with different opinions is going to be protected in this system, because collectivism and mobilizing masses, right, has been a tool of the predator class for centuries. Let's go back to the video.
You are considered guilty until proven innocent. As technology is developed, separate parts of their command and control system are beta tested around the world. Here at home, Boy Scouts are being trained to take on returning veterans and disarm domestic extremists, while national programs such as City Year are training young people to serve the government.
I am change.
I am fierce.
In the United Kingdom, it has been established there are over 4 million CCTV cameras. That is around one camera for every 14 citizens. Their purpose is not to solve crime, as it takes 1,000 CCTV cameras to solve just one crime. It is to create a tattletale society in which everyone is under constant surveillance by the state and those around them. The company Internet Eyes is now paying people to log onto the internet and watch CCTV cameras in real time as they turn in criminals for cash. Families deemed by the state to be unfit in England have now been put under 24-hour CCTV supervision in their homes. This program has plans for 20,000 families in England, which is to double in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't aware of that, but yeah, the sin bin families, in other words, the people that are on all the government dole, which they so desperately want everybody on in a universal basic income society, right? They literally had surveillance cameras in their house, right? And then let's not forget, over in China, a lot of that, the model, the global model, It's not a nation-state thing. They want this all over, right? The CCTV cameras installed in people's apartment complexes wouldn't let them leave their homes. The best. Love it.
Your every move in both your home and the outside world is under constant surveillance by a criminal elite who operate above the law. As we are constantly under the microscope, their activities remain in the shadows. Obama extended diplomatic immunity to Interpol with Executive Order 12,425, further empowering criminal behavior within our own government. In the Middle East, endless wars will continue. Under the Obama administration, we have sent tens of thousands of more troops into Afghanistan, all while the same network exposed in the Iran-Contra affair discussed earlier controls the opium trade. It was revealed in October of 2009 that the CIA had been funding puppet Afghani leader Hamid Karzai's warlord brother for the last 8 years. He is the lead opium dealer in the region. It seems the same cartel that was dealing drugs in the 80s and 90s never stopped. After all, how else could the government fund black operation programs across the board?
By the way, he got assassinated. See, you work with these people, and you're a warlord, even though you're Karzai's brother, the installed dictator in the beginning, the Unocal executive, the gas pipeline guy. Yeah, his bro. He got taken out by somebody on the inside. I think one of his guards who also didn't make it out. And you would think that that's probably intelligence agency pressure. So not even 100 thumbs up over at YouTube. Let's get those thumbs up. Again, in about a half an hour, we're going to move to premium only over at Red Voice Media. You go to redvoicemedia.net or .com, I believe now, /Jason. And for $1, you can get the first month. We're doing it 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, live 8 to 10 a.m. Don't got the scratch. I get it. The buck is hard to come by, even $10 a month. I understand. We're always going to be on Podbean. We're streaming on Podbean right now, live audio style. And if you have the app, in the second hour, we're going to try to take some calls. We'll open up the lines in the second hour for calls via Podbean. Another great way to listen to and enjoy the program. And the archives are here too. So you can also share the program, audio style, RSS feed style. Awesomeness. Okay. I want to play before we get to G. Edward Griffin. And this is also something that I highlight in not only Invisible Empire and New World Order Defined, but in Shade the Motion Picture, is how the media treats these billionaires, in large part, right? Every once in a while now, you'll get this snarky thing. But basically, when they do that, they don't really come down on the billionaires themselves. They're like, we need to reduce carbon, right? They treat their workers bad. Let's bring in robots. So it's problem, reaction, solution, when in fact, like a Jeff Bezos, like Amazon didn't have to be profitable for years. Why? The Defense Department loves it. The military industrial complex loves it. YouTube, not profitable. Great for narrative control. Okay? Great for pop culture. So when elite billionaires meet about population control, and that's what they were meeting about, they call them the Good Guys Club. Let's go to the clip. 1 second, guys. And hopefully...
The price of admission is $1 billion and a philanthropic heart. And that meets the pricey requirements recently held in a secret meeting, a private meeting in New York City. ABC's John Berman has the scoop on who was there and what was going on.
Behind closed doors on this New York campus, a secret gathering of some of the world's most powerful people. Gates, Buffett, Bloomberg, Winfrey. It was like the Super Friends.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's 4 greatest heroes.
Together with others at the meeting, including George Soros, Ted Turner, David Rockefeller, they're worth more than $125 billion.
By the way, that's chump change now. I'd say at this point, Soros has well over $100 billion, probably well more than that. Again, this is 2009. Gates up there, easily worth well more than $100 billion. Buffett, come on now. Bloomberg, good question. Hard to say. Probably up around there. And I would say Oprah at this point. If she's not $100 billion, she's got to be close. David's dead. Apparently, it was his son, David Rockefeller Jr., that actually attended this meeting. But hey, they're akin to Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, right? They're the super rich friends.
To have been in the room and see this meeting of the minds really would have been a fascinating thing.
That much money, that much power around one table. It begs the question, what were they doing? What were they scheming? Total world domination? This group, together for 6 hours, was talking about charity, education, emergency relief, global health.
All my friends are philanthropic. Well, they probably wouldn't be my friends.
An official at the Gates Foundation told ABCnews.com the overwhelming reason for the meeting was need. That was the issue that galvanized everyone to participate. Together, they've given away $70 billion since 1996. And with the sagging economy, their help could be just what struggling charities need.
Charities are hurting, and somebody has to speak for all these charities, and if they want philanthropy to be robust in the future in the United States, these are the people where you really want to be talking about it.
The new Superman and Wonder Woman, the super rich friends, not fighting bad guys, but fighting for good nonetheless.
Fighting for good nonetheless. They're superheroes. The Supermen and Wonder Woman. How dare they culturally appropriate Wonder Woman with Oprah? How dare they? But this is how the media portrays these people, right? I want to get to the CFR. I want to get to G. Edward Griffin. The man's a legend. He's still kicking it. I believe he's 91 years old. And this here has to be from that same time period, maybe like 2007, 2008. Actually, probably about 2007 this is from. And if you've never seen G. Edward speak, you're in for a treat. The guy is very robust when he describes these things and how they came into fruition and what they're really being used for. And he minces no words about a new world order in this part of his speech on the CFR. So without further ado, here is the legend, G. Edward Griffin.
People want to go to the members of the Council on Foreign Relations and say, are you guys really planning world government and loss of sovereignty? And so, of course not. Are you really planning to merge America, I mean the United States, with Canada and Mexico? Absurd. This is just part of the game, and you must understand it. Now, world government doesn't just happen by writing some articles or books. Only when people are in control of power centers of society can they bring about massive changes like this. Not scholarship, but power. It's not public opinion, but power. Power is the key, and the power centers of society are what amalgamate and give these people power over their citizens. Now, how this came about, Quigley describes this. It's very interesting what he says. How did this come about? He said, through Lord Milner's influence, these men were able to win influential posts in government, in international finance, and become the dominant influence in British imperial affairs and foreign affairs up to 1939. In 1909 through 1913, they organized semi-secret groups known as roundtable groups. We're covering the same ground here again. In the chief British dependencies and the United States. These still function in 8 countries. The task was given to Lionel Curtis, who established in England and each dominion a front organization to the existing local roundtable group. This front organization, called the Royal Institute of International Affairs, had as its nucleus in each area the existing submerged roundtable group. In New York, it was known as the Council on Foreign Relations and was a front for J.P. Morgan and Company. All right. At last we come to this ubiquitous Council on Foreign Relations. You're hearing more and more about it. Even increasingly now on the news, you'll say, and here's a word from so-and-so from the Council on Foreign Relations office. And the average gum-chewing public says, huh, that sounds good. I wonder what that's all about. So increasingly, this phrase, CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, is becoming more and more, at least common. People don't know what it is, but they've heard it. So it's no longer frightening when they hear it. So we are informed by Quigley and others that the Council on Foreign Relations was spawned by a secret society which still exists today, that it is a front for a roundtable group originally embodied in J.P. Morgan and Company, but now the Rockefeller Consortium, and that its primary goal is no longer the expansion of the British Empire, but global collectivism with control in private hands, administered in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these are their words, not mine.
I just want to stop it right there. Feudalist system. We talk about what? The peasant class here. Talk about the predator class. And again, I think last week when we did the video on Prince Charles and the WEF 50th anniversary and the crown of sustainability, one of the features in that Truth Stream documentary is the idea, while they bring up these technopolies and all this technology and try to enslave you virtually and through the track trace database system, right, and through not only the Internet of Things, but the Internet of Bodies, they want a return to feudalism. They want a return to feudalism. It's ours. When they tell you there are no haves or have-nots, they're the have-everythings. Okay? That's the thing. There's going to be the have-everythings. And the have-everythings look at you like chattel. All right? That's it. And you are beneath them. They love this feudalism type style. Period. Didn't want to interrupt G. Edward too much. Let him go on like a 3.5 minute rant there. Don't worry. Plenty more from G. Edward right here.
Now, why is this important? It is important because the members of the Council on Foreign Relations are the rulers of America. Can I back that up? I think I can. Who are the members of the Council on Foreign Relations? It's a very long list. Actually, it's about 4,000 names. It's available, by the way, if you write to the Council on Foreign Relations office on your own letterhead, especially if it's a corporate letterhead. So I'd like a copy of the annual report. You'll get it. I've been collecting these for many years, and in the back of each report, they have the list of the current members. And here's what I found. Let's start with presidents of the United States. Council members include Herbert Hoover, Dwight Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, James Carter, George Bush Sr., and William Clinton. Now, JFK once said that he was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, but I've not been able to find his name on any of the membership lists. So he's confused over that. I guess he wanted to be, but never quite made it in. Now, former presidential candidate John Kerry is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And if anything should happen to President Bush, then Richard Cheney would become president, and he is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Secretaries of State, undoubtedly, to this group are more important than presidents, because presidents often just take advice. I mean, there's so much going on. They've got their cabinet, and they've got people telling them what to do. And so the Secretary of State is a critical figure, a critical position in this New World Order. And so it's not surprising to find that just about every Secretary of State from the beginning has been a member of the CFR. Here's the list. Dean Rusk, Robert Lansing, Frank Kellogg, Henry Stimson, Cordell Hull, E.R. Stettinius, George Marshall, Dean Acheson, John Foster Dulles, Christian Herter, Dean Rusk, William Rogers, Henry Kissinger, Cyrus Vance, Edmund Muskie, Alexander Haig, George Shultz, James Baker, Lawrence Egelberger, Warren Christopher, William Richardson, Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, and of course, Condoleezza Rice. The Secretaries of Defense, pretty important position if you're going to build a new world order and use coercion if necessary, include James Forrestal, George Marshall, Charles Wilson, Neil McElroy, Robert McNamara, Melvin Laird, Elliot Richardson, James Schlesinger, Harold Brown, Caspar Weinberger, Frank Carlucci, Richard Cheney, Les Aspin, William Perry, William Cohen, and Donald Rumsfeld. CIA directors: Walter Smith, William Colby, Richard Helms, Allen Dulles, John McCone, James Schlesinger, George Bush Sr., Stansfield Turner, William Casey, William Webster, Robert Gates, James Woolsey, John Deutsch, William Studeman, George Tenet, Porter Goss, and Michael Hayden. Now, some better-known corporations with CFR members at the board or chief executive levels, which means they exert dominance and, for all practical purposes, control over the policies of these large corporations. Now, this is a long list, and I'm not going to read to you any more than just the tip of the iceberg. But they include Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, AT&T, Avon Products, Bechtel Construction Group, Boeing Company, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Chevron, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi-Cola, Consolidated Edison of New York, Exxon, Dow Chemical, DuPont Chemical, Eastman Kodak, Enron, SD Lauder, Ford Motor, General Electric, General Foods, Hewlett-Packard, Hughes Aircraft, IBM, International Paper, Johnson & Johnson, Levi Strauss & Company, Lockheed Aerospace, Lucent Technologies, Mobil Oil, Monsanto, Northrop, Pacific Gas and Electric, Phillips Petroleum, Procter & Gamble, Quaker Oats, SBC Yahoo, Shell Oil, SmithKline Beecham Pharmaceuticals, Sprint Corporation, Texaco, Santa Fe Southern Pacific Railroad, Teledyne, TRW, Southern California Edison, Unical, United Technologies, Verizon Communications, Warner Lambert, Weyerhaeuser, and Xerox, to name just a few. Now, in the media, a pretty important place to be if you want to control public opinion, we find CFR members in management and operational positions at the following media corporations: the Army Times, Associated Press, Association of American Publishers, Barron's, Boston Globe, Business Week, Christian Science Monitor, Dallas Morning News, Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, New York Post, San Diego Union Tribune, Times Mirror, Random House, W.W. Norton and Company, Warner Books, American Spectator, Atlantic, Harper's, Farm Journal, Financial World, Insight, Washington Times, Medical Tribune, National Geographic, National Review, New Republic, New Yorker, Newsday, Newsmax, Newsweek, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Reader's Digest, Rolling Stone, Scientific American, Time Warner, Time, U.S. News and World Report, Washington Post, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, PBS, RCA, and the Walt Disney Company.
Oh, the Walt Disney Company. Now, I let him go for a while there, and I saw some people in the comments. Why is he listing off those names? Because that's just the tip of the iceberg. Out of everything he just read there, maybe 100 examples of people and then prominent institutions. And that's why we also call it the media military industrial complex. All those media organizations, fake news, not a new phenomenon. All right? I was wrong. This is what did I say, 2008 or 9 maybe? I said, this got to be 2007. Like I said, 2007. This is still when the Bush administration was around. And G. Edward Griffin had been doing this for decades before. The Creature from Jekyll Island is a big deal. That's another reason we showed you that Blake Masters picture with Ron Paul yesterday, because they were at Jekyll Island. And this is the guy that shined the light on that darkness that was the creation of the Federal Reserve System. Talk about a return to feudalism, using incrementalism, using modes of control outside of a nation state with a pseudo-government organization. That's why we let him just go on that tirade and end it with Disney. And Disney has CIA ties all over the place. CIA ties all over the place. In fact, we got this MK Ultra clip that we're definitely going to get to in the second half of the broadcast. In the second half of the broadcast, coming up in about 10 minutes, again, we're going to open up the phone lines via the Podbean app. And what I'm going to have the producers do is just text me every time we have a phone caller in waiting, and then we'll wrap up whatever clip or maybe pause whatever clip, take your calls. Remember, you want the video feed of this. It's going to be Red Voice Media exclusive, redvoicemedia.net/Jason. That's where you can sign up for just $1 for the first month. All right, let's let G. Edward Griffin wrap it up. He's got about 3.5 minutes or so left in this section talking about the Council on Foreign Relations and their importance of bringing about globalism, aka a new world order.
Did we leave anybody out? I don't think so. Not on the list yet. Could be, though. I just didn't locate it.
American Free Press?
Pardon?
American Free Press?
I'm going to check into those guys. Pardon?
American Free Press?
I'm going to check into those guys.
Cover's blown.
All right, the media personalities, the talking heads. Not so important, but still important. David Brinkley, Tom Brokaw, William Buckley, Peter Jennings, Bill Moyers, Dan Rather, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Katie Couric, and Andrea Mitchell, wife of Alan Greenspan. And by the way, Greenspan, in case you were wondering, former chairman of the Federal Reserve System, is a member of the CFR. Labor unions, with CFR members in key positions at the top, include AFL-CIO, United Steelworkers of America, United Auto Workers, American Federation of Teachers, Bricklayers and Allied Craft, Communications Workers of America, Union of Needle Trades, and Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers. In the tax-exempt foundations and the think tanks, which often create policies which the government then implement, the number of CFR members in controlling positions is 443. As of my last count. Could be more, could be less today, but it's in that range. Some of the better known names are the Sloan and Kettering Foundations, the Aspen Institute, the Atlantic Council, Bilderberg Group, Brookings Institute, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Carnegie Foundation, Ford Foundation, Guggenheim Foundation, Hudson Institute, John and Catherine MacArthur Foundation, Mellon Foundation, Rand Corporation, Rhodes Scholarship Selection Commission, Rockefeller Foundation and Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Trilateral Commission, and the UN Association. By the way, if you've ever wondered where all of these radical groups get their money that are agitating for all kinds of disruptive things in the United States, all of the radical La Raza groups, you know, all of the, a few years ago they had the little band of radicalized American Indians messing up the Northwest. They're all funded by these organizations, tax-exempt foundation. That's where the money comes from. Now, in the universities, the number of CFR members who are or have been at the very tops as professors or presidents or department heads, board members, the total number is 563. In the financial institutions such as banks, the Federal Reserve, the stock exchanges, brokerage houses, the number of CFR members with controlling positions is 284. Now, as I mentioned before, the total membership of this group is approximately 4,000 people. There are a lot of organizations, a lot of church organizations in your hometown that have that many members or more. Now, wouldn't you be surprised that if you were to discover that if the members of just that one local church dominated American politics and corporate structures and communications and universities, that they were controlling the United States, just that one little group, wouldn't you be amazed? Wouldn't you wonder what was going on? Wouldn't you start asking some questions? It would be pretty hard, however, for you to get answers to those questions if it turned out that the media and the channels through which those questions would be asked and answered were controlled by members of that same church. And that's essentially the kind of a situation that we have facing America today.
And let me say this, by the way, there's other subsections of that. Maybe I'll put that subsection up on Rumble. It's already up on YouTube somewhere. Hard to find. We got like 3,000 videos literally over on YouTube. By the way, can we get 150 thumbs up? Over 200 people watching. Now, G. Edward Griffin talks about a lot of different things Okay, but these groups, he was using the church as a metaphor. Look at the work that Derek Broze has recently done with the Church of Latter-day Saints and the Mormons and the corruption at the highest levels there. Look at the corruption within the Vatican and the child abuse scandals. Whenever you get these type of institutions and groups of power, whether they be political, religious, or even in the entertainment field, which is just rife with child predators, right? You get abuses and competition, but it's this cartel system, right? At the very top, you have this generational, nepotistic group of bloodlines that have been at the peaks of power for centuries, period. They don't have groups of people prancing around with crowns and being protected from government dollars and having their wealth hidden for nothing, right? And some of them are just more outright, right? I'm talking about, obviously, the European royal system. In Saudi Arabia, they just run the show. They're not even fooling. Generational bloodlines, okay? This is the reality that we're under. And then they've set up these roundtable groups based in Cecil Rhodes, really, Rhodesian psychology, and the Council on Foreign Relations, like you said, the Royal Institute for Affairs were some of the first. Were some of the first, at least, Anglo-American style ones. There are plenty. There are plenty, okay? So we've only got a few more minutes before we go premium at Red Voice. I don't want to start any other videos. But up next, I mean, you're going to want to come over. You're going to want to at least come over and listen. Up next, I'm going to bring just a portion. I can't find the tape of the first hour. I know it's shameful, of this interview I did with Gunderson, Ted Gunderson, well over a decade ago. This is probably 2006 this interview's from, so over 15 years ago. But I do have the last 10 minutes of it. So we're going to play that last 10 minutes at the forefront of the next hour-long segment. For those that are going to leave us, it's too bad. I do want to remind everybody I'm a documentary filmmaker. We played a small section of Invisible Empire, A New World Order, defined here today. All of them are free. I give away all my stuff. And that's another really great thing about Red Voice is, yeah, it's premium for the second hour, but video. I mean, you still get audio. I want people to share this information. That's what's important. That's why I do this. Okay, so Shade the Motion Picture, Loose Change, and Fabled Enemies, also so important. If you don't understand 9/11 yet, then you're really not going to get that this is something that's been going on for decades, and they don't give a flying flip about you because you're an American citizen. Doesn't matter the color of your skin. Doesn't matter your gender. All right? They didn't take a survey at the top levels when they pulled off that international intelligence operation. And also with Ted Gunderson, I got about a 26-minute speech that I think that we're also going to play on the flip side over on the premium end of this with Anthony Saltalamacchia. Again, I wanted people to get to know me that are new to the program and the broadcast and what I've been doing for years and years and years. When we talk about explosives in the World Trade Center that had nothing to do with planes hitting them, Willie Rodriguez, the keymaster, that comes up a lot, okay? Willie comes up a lot. I've met Willie. You can see a lot of videos with Willie and interviews with Willie. And you can actually find people, I believe it's like Felipe Lopez. It may not be Felipe Lopez. It might be his last name is Felipe. We have it in Loose Change Final Cut, this man who was burned and saved by Willie. Okay? And this man, Anthony Saltalamacchia, backs up everything Willie said, was working with Willie that day, and the mainstream media never touched his story either. He said, absolutely, there were secondary explosions going on in the basement level. That means bombs in the building. That's another thing that authoritative sources just say, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm a bad guy. Maybe we should go after me next. Right? It doesn't even have to be disinformation or misinformation. The narrative is such that if it's malinformation, it goes against U.S. interests, right? I should be silenced. So with that being said, producers, let's get it over to the premium portion of the broadcast. I'm going to wrap it up here. I want you to thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. And the producers will let me know. They're going to open up the lines, and we'll take calls as we play these interviews and as we go over, hopefully, this MK Ultra electrodes clip on the flip. So we're going to do it one at a time so we don't crash. Good.